Hey everybody, and welcome back to Satisfactory on Story Theory. So I hope you're strapped in for today's factory showcase, because it's not only a computer factory, a plastic factory, a rubber factory, a fabric factory, a petroleum coke factory, a circuit board factory, and a packaged TurboFuel factory, but it's also a TurboFuel power plant making 66,500 megawatts of power. So we have a lot to look at. This is going to be a longer episode. Let's take a quick flyover and then get into the production planner. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, I usually go through the production planner pretty darn quick, but I'm going to take a step back and slow things down for this one because we have a lot to go through. I also have the summary panel open on the left side here in the Satisfactory Modular. You can get that by clicking on this little booklet down here at the bottom. And then you can change these as you'd like, change it to overclock, power, output. These are all options you can pick. So, in this area, we have 2,700 oil. That is including all the oil extractors and the resource well. And I'll put the interactive map up here in a second when we're done with the planner, so that way you can see what the purity of each one of those nodes are. I'm also using 1050 sulfur, 200 copper ore, and then a bit of water too. So the first thing we're going to go through is the computer dimensional depot, and that's what I have up here first at the very top. So we're going to be using 600 of that oil, making into just straight rubber. The heavy oil residue is going to be coming up here, making petroleum coke. Now you make a ton of petroleum coke with heavy oil residue. So that's 1,200 petroleum coke just out of that 400 heavy oil residue. 200 of that is going to go into a petroleum coke dimensional depot. You don't really need anything or petroleum coke for anything unless you're building some weapons and some stuff like that, and maybe some alternate recipes if you're curious, but I wanted to put a dimensional depot there and just have it just in case. I had the extra, so why not? So then we're going to take that rubber, that petroleum coke, and use a circuit board alternate recipe that just uses that petroleum coke and rubber, and that is instead of the copper and the plastic. And you'll see why here when we get down further into the build. So that's going to go into our manufacturer making our computers. Then the second resource we need for computers is going to be cable. That's where that 200 copper ore is going to come in. That's coming in by tractor, and I'll show where that node is here in a second as well. So that's going to be smelted down, made into wire, made into cable, and that's going straight to our manufacturer for our computers. Now the plastic is also going to be made with a 600 crude oil node. That is going to be made into straight plastic, not recycled plastic, just plastic. So that way we can get some plastic and heavy oil residue as a byproduct. That 400 plastic is going to go into the manufacturer for manufacturers, making our 25 computers that are going into our dimensional depot. Hopefully you're still with me. So we're going to go down here to our circuit board dimensional depot. That's going to take 150 of the crude oil, make that into rubber. Once again, we're going to have 100 heavy oil residue as a byproduct, 100 rubber, and that 100 rubber is going to mix with the 200 petroleum coke that we have up here that's left over. So we had 800 going into those circuit boards, 200 going into our dimensional depot, and then 200 coming down here to make circuit boards. So those two machines are going to be making 25 circuit boards per minute going into another dimensional depot. So that takes care of computers and circuit boards. Alright, so this is where things get much more complicated. This is where we're going to be making our TurboFuel, our plastic, our rubber, and our fabric for our dimensional depots. So all the rest of the oil in here is all going to be made into heavy oil residue alternate recipe. So this is going to give you a crap ton of heavy oil residue, or HOR as I abbreviate it, and then it's also going to give you a bunch of polymer resin. That polymer resin is all going to be made into fabric, rubber, and plastic. So down here we're adding a little bit of water into 200 of that polymer resin to make some fabric, so we'll get 200 of that going into a dimensional depot. The rubber is 300 of the polymer resin is coming down here into 3 refineries at 250% overclock speed, making 150 rubber going into the dimensional depot, and that's using 300 water. The rest of that 400 polymer resin is coming down here into 3 refineries at 222.15%, making plastic. Now that's going to take 133.3 water, and 80.83 of that is going to be going into a dimensional depot, and 52.5 of that is going to be made into canisters. I'll talk about those in a second. Now here in the middle, we're going to have our TurboFuel manufacturing. So all of the heavy oil residue that we have here. So we got 200 from the plastic up here, we got 100 from the rubber right there, and 1800 from all of this heavy oil residue. So that's going to make a total of 2100 heavy oil residue. Now that's going to be split up and go into a diluted fuel blender, which is an alternate recipe. So you can have packaged diluted fuel or just diluted fuel, it doesn't really matter. And that is going to go into our turbo blend fuel, which is also an alternate recipe. The diluted fuel, of course, needs 700 water to make it diluted. 1400 of that heavy oil residue is going straight into our turbo blend fuel. So we have our normal fuel up here, our heavy oil residue right here. We're going to inject 1050 sulfur. That's actually coming in by 2 drone ports in 2 areas of the map, which I'll explain on the interactive map in a minute. And then the other 300 heavy oil residue is coming down here to make more petroleum coke, which is going to go into our turbo blend fuel as well. Now, that turbo blend fuel is actually split into a bunch of different 300 pipes, and that's taking up into 114 fuel generators at 233.3% overclock speed. The other 105 of that turbo fuel is being mixed in with the canisters from down here from the plastic, and that's going to be packaged, and that's for the drones. So this facility actually makes the fuel for the drones to make the fuel for the power that then powers the drones. Yeah, I hope I really hope you're following me there. So this might look super complicated at first, but once you break things down, it's really making some computers, making some circuit boards, tons of turbo fuel, making some fabric, some rubber, some plastic, and some packaged turbo fuel. So now that we've gone through the production planner, hopefully you followed me through the entire thing. Let's go take a walk through the factory. All right, now that my webcam is back over where it belongs, let's go take a run through the factory. So like I said, the copper is going to be coming in by truck. It comes all the way from over yonder. And then we have a couple things of sulfur coming in by drones. And let me pull up the interactive map. Of course, we are on the west coast of the map, here at the area, I can't remember, this isn't the Spire Coast. What is this called? This is just called the Islands, all right? Spire Islands, actually, is what this is called. So, then this is a normal sulfur node. That's going to be delivering by drone to the power plant. This is a pure sulfur node, also delivering by drone, and this is a pure copper node delivering by tractor into this power plant. Oh, here he comes now. Look at him go. He does everything we need, and he does it very repeatably, and he gets to drive along the beach the entire time, which is kind of nice. So, let's just start off on the bottom. We have all of our oil extractors in their nice housings, pumping their crude oil. We got another one over there, we got another one back there, and we got another one over here. They are all nicely labeled up front, so I know exactly what we're doing. We're doing 600 per minute out of there. Now on the bottom on this side, we are also using the resource well pressurizer to make sure that we are getting the full 900 per minute out of each one of these crude oil nodes. So Each one of these is also labeled, so that way I know exactly where the hell they're going. These are our water pipes. They are, of course, painted blue. Everything is color-coded in here to make sense. So purple is going to be our heavy oil residue, red is our turbo fuel, orange is our normal fuel, and then blue, of course, is water, and this brown, blackish color is crude oil. Down here is my logistics floor. It is about as neat as I feel like you can make it. This is a full 8 meters, I believe. Let's see. 1 and 2. Yes, so this is a full 8 meters for this logistics floor, and it worked out really, really well. This is where keeping things organized and making sure the ins and outs of everything are going in the right direction are very important. But as you can tell, we got a bunch of merges, a bunch of splitters, bunch of conveyors going everywhere. Of course, I have some signs just so I would stay organized and where things are going. This is also where you don't want to merge up and split pipes super frequently. You want to keep pipes as unmerged as possible. It makes things much less complicated to do it that way. And also the likelihood that your pipes will always work repeatably. Little autosave there. Alright, so let's go upstairs. This is the beginning of the manufacturing floor. Here we have our turbo fuel processing, priority power switch, and then, over here we have our power generators. So I could turn these on and off based on the switch to make it make the power grids join together. So overall, I'm producing about 73,000 megawatts worth of power total in the world. However, this facility makes 66,500 megawatts of power. We have our tractor truck stop right here. So the tractor comes in that garage door, drops off all of our copper, which you can tell we got a crap ton, and then it goes and scoots out the other side. This is just kind of a nice little equipment workshop and a workbench and a nice Explorer. I put them in here to take up space, essentially. So on the right side here, we're going to have 4 pods of 6 power generators, or fuel generators, all clocked to 233.333% overclock speed. So we are using 17.5 in each one of these, and we're going to go ahead and multiply that by 6, and it should be 105. So each one of these Mark I pipes is carrying 105 turbo fuel, which is exactly how much one of these blenders makes. So I take the turbo fuel pipe from the blender, pump it over here, I split it evenly into all 6 of these fuel generators, and that's it. I could have merged them up into, say, 2 or 3 and then split them back off, but I didn't want to do that. Keep it simple. Also, you'll notice here on the fuel generators, the pipes are lifted up above them. Once again, it is much better and more consistent to have your fluids flow down with gravity. So I pump it up into the center one, it flows out into these, and then it flows down into the fuel generators. And as soon as I started up this facility, it went off like that. There was no spin up time for any of these. This is our packaged turbo fuel area. So this is taking some of the plastic from over there, actually, making those canisters, going into our packagers here, and making packaged turbo fuel for our first dimensional depot uploader. Now, over here on the left side, we have circuit boards going to computers at 100 per minute. So all of these assemblers are the same. They're all making our circuit boards that are then going to our computers, which go down right here. So this is an even load balance merger area. So we got 4 on one side, 4 on the other, coming in the middle and then going down and around. Once again, we're only making 100 per minute, so this shouldn't back up at all with the Mark IV belt speed, which is 480 per minute. Alright, so now on this side, we have the petroleum coke going to the rubber and the circuit board. So this petroleum coke is coming from the oil residue, the oil node right below us. It comes up in the middle right here. It goes into, once again, an elevated pipe system, and that gets split off into each one of these. Now this top pipe right here, this one that I have highlighted, it helps to actually have a fully connected system with fluids. So I could not have this here and just have this one on each end be a full stop. However, it works much better if the system is connected. So you just connect this one all the way over here to this one at the very end, and it makes things run more consistently. On the end, we have our heavy oil residue coming out of each one of these and going into our two refineries. Once again, could have merged this up with the other side, but it doesn't make sense to do that. Keep it separate. I don't need an elevated pipe on this because everything is at the same level. It's coming out at this height and going in at this height. There's no gravity to speak of or head lift, so it makes it very simple. And then on the back side here, each one of these is making our 300 petroleum coke. So with a Mark IV belt, you can only get 480 speeds. It makes way more sense to have all of these separate into each one of their individual lines. If we come all the way back, this is just going to be where our dimensional depot storage for petroleum coke and circuit boards. So we have circuit boards here, petroleum coke here, on a smart splitter with an overflow tab going to an awesome sink. This is one of the 2 awesome sinks in this facility. Now on the left side here, we have our drones. The drones are bringing in sulfur. The drones bring in 900 sulfur per trip. So that is the max that a drone can bring in. It can bring in 9 stacks. Sulfur stacks in 100 each. So if we look at this, it takes 4 minutes and 27 seconds for one drone to get from this port to the other one and bring things back. This one is 4 minutes and 35 seconds. So basically, we are getting 900 parts per 4.5 minutes, let's say. So let's see. 900 divided by 4.5, we're actually only getting about 200 per minute out of each one of these. Now, there's 2 drones on each one of the sulfur nodes, so there's a drone on either side, so that gets 900 each. Now there's a drone on this port and a drone on each one of those, so I actually have 4 drones going back and forth to each one of those sulfur nodes. Is it a bit overkill? Probably, but it didn't work with just 2 drones, so I added the extras to make sure. And that sulfur is going into our TurboFuel. Each one of these is using 52.5 per minute, and we have, I can't remember the number of how many blenders we have. 20. We have 20 blenders using 52.5, which should be that 1,000 that we talked about. 52.5, yep, 1,050. So those drones are bringing in enough sulfur with 4 each, which means we're bringing in about 900 per minute on each one of these, which is definitely enough. Now, I'm probably not going to use the rest of the sulfur node. Maybe I will, depending on, especially that pure node, depending on what I do with nuclear power. Now on this side, we're using the resource well pressurizer. Of course, this entire back row is all making heavy oil residue. It's all labeled nicely, so that way I know what's happening. And all of that goes down and in, and it goes to each one of the individual areas over here. It's either going to the blenders or going to the diluted fuel. Now on the back side here for water, this is where we use the elevated pipe method again. You'll see it back here with the crude oil. The crude oil, I'm not splitting it, I'm not merging it, I'm not doing anything. I'm just using it in the couple of refineries that it could take. So we're making, let's see, we're making rubber on these first 3. Also have signs here for that. Circuit boards that are going to the dimensional depot. We're making fabric to the dimensional depot. Circuit boards, dimensional depot, and plastic to the dimensional depot there. This is our diluted fuel area. So each one of these blenders is making diluted fuel that'll be going over to the TurboFuel area. These 4 refineries here are making our petroleum coke for our TurboFuel. And then back here we have our copper smelting, our wire and our cable production. And then on this side, we have our plastic production. So this is making all the plastic going to our computers. And then on this side here, our manufacturers, this line of manufacturers is making our computers. So on this side, I kind of have our dimensional depot storage tower, let's say. So one of these, this is, what is it? This is computers, this is plastic, and then we have rubber, and then we have fabric. And all of that, plus our unused, or our overflow for our turbo fuel, is coming into the awesome sink. So this awesome sink is very busy. It's taking all of the overflow from everything and putting it in to get those sweet, sweet coupons. So we have a programmable splitter here, which is actually going computers and plastics on the left, overflow through the center, fabric and rubber on the right. And then we have two smart splitters here, computers, plastic, and overflow. This one on the bottom, fabric, rubber, overflow. And then this center overflow, this overflow tab, all merge up and go into the awesome sink. Now, on this side, this is all of our fuel generators. So, there are quite a few floors of this. I believe there are 6 floors of turbo fuel generators. So this is floor number 2, floor number 3, floor number 4, floor number 5 of our turbo fuel power plant. Also on the top, I didn't have enough turbo fuel because that other, the other pipe of 105 that could have been put into the generators is making the power for the packaged turbo fuel. So I actually just decided to throw in a ton of power storage up here and kind of take up the space nicely. That's going to be it for the turbo fuel, computer, plastic, rubber, circuit board, petroleum coke, power generator facility. This video is definitely quite a bit longer than my other ones because I had so much to show. And this is really the first factory I'm super proud of. I mean, the lighting in here is great. Everything's labeled well. Even our power poles for each one of our powered beams. The pods look really nice and clean. I mean, there's walkways everywhere. Walkways everywhere. We're kind of elevated off the bottom of the manufacturing floor, so I use the 2-meter foundation and then sink it down 2 meters to kind of give it that nice effect. So that way you're a little above the machines, and I think it works out really nice. Now the logistics floor, it's not super pretty, trust me. It's pretty messy down here at times. But everything works and everything is goddamn consistent. And nobody's gonna see the logistics floor besides me, you know? Pioneers don't go down there, it's a scary place. Well, I hope you enjoyed the episode. This is the first very big manufacturing plant that I made. On my old PC, it definitely was frying the CPU to be in here, and it was pretty stuttery, but on the new PC, it runs like butter. Alright, I hope to see you guys on the next one. If you liked the video and want to see more, please let me know in the comments down below, and I will see you on the next one.